Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into something absolutely crucial. We are going to bridge a gap that is honestly holding a lot of incredibly talented professionals back, the space between your technical data skills and your professional English fluency. You see, working in data or analytics requires so much more than just coding or building complex models. It demands the ability to describe your work clearly, persuasively, and above all, professionally. So, are your technical skills enough to succeed on their own? Well, if we're being completely honest with ourselves, the answer is usually no. And this is a massive pain point in the industry right now. Being technically brilliant just isn't enough if you can't articulate your value, explain your methodology to a non-technical stakeholder, or navigate tricky workplace conversations. At the end of the day, your insights are literally only as powerful as your ability to communicate them. Okay, so here is our roadmap for today. We're going to tackle 1. Essential data vocabulary. 2. Powerful professional collocations. 3. Clear comparative structures. And 4. Putting it all together. Let's jump in. Starting off with Section 1, Essential Data Vocabulary, Building Your Professional Foundation. Just knowing these specialist terms passively, it doesn't cut it anymore. You have to actively deploy them in conversation. Take technical debt, for example. This is actually a term borrowed straight from finance. Think about your average credit card debt. If you just pay the absolute minimum, that interest grows, and eventually it cripples your finances. Technical debt is exactly the same concept. If a team writes quick, messy code or skips necessary updates, yeah, it might save time today, but it accumulates. Eventually, it slows down all future work until someone finally pays it off by cleaning up the system. And speaking of things that slow you down, let's talk about legacy systems. A legacy system is basically an older, outdated piece of tech that a company has practically changed to. You can seamlessly connect this concept right back to technical debt. These systems are notoriously slow, difficult to update, and almost never play nice with modern tools. So you might be wondering, why keep them around? Well, because ripping them out and replacing them is often just way too expensive and disruptive for companies to tackle easily. All right, moving on to another massive hurdle, the dreaded data silo. This describes a scenario where different databases within a company are completely walled off from each other. Breaking down these silos is pretty much a top priority for almost every data infrastructure team out there. Why? Because when data is isolated like that, teams can't access each other's information, which entirely prevents them from getting a complete, actionable picture of the business. It's like trying to put together a puzzle while half the pieces are locked in another room. Which actually brings us to a word you will probably feel deep in your bones. Ambiguity. This is the state of things being unclear, imprecise, or open to a dozen different interpretations. Let's be real, this is the everyday reality of data work, isn't it? A metric can be calculated 3 different ways, or a stakeholder asks a wildly imprecise question. The ability to quote-unquote translate ambiguity, taking something totally murky and turning it into clear, actionable scenarios, is without a doubt one of the most highly valued skills for any senior analyst. So how does all this look in the real world? Well, listen to this. I provided an executive summary of the deliverables to help stakeholders navigate the ambiguity. Think about how that translates, that murky cloud of ambiguity, into something concrete. An executive summary is your concise document for busy managers, and deliverables are the actual, tangible outputs you hand over. Combining these terms shows exactly how you can navigate that uncertainty seamlessly and professionally. Okay, Section 2, Powerful Professional Collocations, Connecting the Bricks Naturally. If vocabulary words are your bricks, collocations are the mortar holding them together. They are the words that just naturally pair up. Getting this wrong is kind of like throwing a wrench in the gears of your sentence. For example, saying, I want to impact the product. It's okay, but it sounds a bit clunky. But saying, I want to have an impact on the product, now that is polished. Using have an impact on immediately elevates your speech, making you sound far more native and highly professional. Now, whatever you do, please burn this next difference into your memory. Turnaround describes how fast you complete a task. When stakeholders need results yesterday, you promise a quick turnaround on that report. Never, ever confuse this with turnover, which literally refers to staff running for the exit and quitting. Promising a quick turnover sounds like you were promising to resign the second you finish your analysis. Definitely not the impression we're going for. Let's look at some essential workplace actions. We've got managing expectations early, which is just clearly communicating what's actually realistic before deadlines get crazy. Reaching a mutual understanding is a great, neutral way to talk about resolving a disagreement. Prioritizing ruthlessly means cutting out the non-essential stuff without agonizing over it. But I really want to focus on this last one, giving professional pushback. Pushback is not aggressive. Actually, scratch that. It's the exact opposite of hostile. It's a polite, reasoned resistance to an idea, and being able to deliver it calmly is a true hallmark of professionalism. Section 3, clear comparative structures, framing your analytical arguments. Now we transition into the grammatical framework you will constantly rely on to weigh trade-offs and priorities. The rules of comparison are pretty simple, but people forget them all the time under pressure. For short, one-syllable words, just add plus than, like faster than. For irregulars, good becomes better than. And for longer words with 2 or more syllables, you just use more or less plus the adjective plus than, like more useful than. Let's look at a super common error that trips up even advanced speakers. This is more useful as a report versus this is more useful than a report. The rule here is absolute and non-negotiable. The word than absolutely has to follow the comparative form. Please don't use as when you are trying to make a comparison. It breaks your conversational flow and distracts the listener from your otherwise brilliant idea. And check this out. Notice the S at the end of the verbs matters here. When you use what as your subject or an ing verb, a gerund, like solving as your subject, it acts as a singular noun, therefore the verb has to end in S. So it is what matters more and solving problems matters. Nailing this specific structure will make you sound incredibly authoritative, especially in interviews. Finally, section 4, putting it all together, the perfect interview answer. Let's actually synthesize all these tools into a total knockout of a response. But first, a really quick concept review. Intrinsic motivation is your internal drive, the sheer satisfaction of solving a really hard problem. Extrinsic motivation comes from the outside, things like your salary, your bonuses, or your job title. If you are ever asked about compensation in an interview, a truly well-rounded, mature answer is going to gracefully acknowledge both of these aspects. Consider this response right here. Interesting analytical challenges drive me more than compensation, although I do think that fair pay reflects the value a company places on its analysts. Wow, right? Notice how this weaves the whole shebang together perfectly. It uses precise vocabulary, it uses a clear comparative structure with more than, and perfectly avoids that common as error we talked about. It seamlessly connects your internal drive to an external professional standard. Just brilliant. We have covered a ton of ground in this explainer today, but just knowing this stuff isn't enough. You've got to use it. Seriously, there is nothing more frustrating than spending weeks on a massive analysis, only to see your insights completely underutilized just because the communication wasn't quite right. So, I challenge you. Take these tools, the vocabulary, the collocations, the grammar, and immediately put them to work in your next meeting or interview. How will you elevate your voice to ensure your brilliant work actually makes the impact it deserves? Think about it. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.